Hi guys, dctmakes here. Back on the ring bender stuff. A couple of people asked me, not on YouTube but outside, how to resize rings. It depends on. There's lots of different ways, and all you professional jewelers out there will have a different way of doing it. But just a couple of ways of messing about with the size of stuff. Obviously, making things bigger is relatively simple. You can put them on a mandrel and work out what they are, work out what the person that wants to buy it, or you're making it for, wants it to be, and then you can just basically knock it down the mandrel and change it. Well, obviously you've got to be careful about things like how big the space is, will it pinch somebody's finger, stuff like that. But just making the ring bigger, it won't go any smaller than that, because obviously this ring's just straight round, not a twist. So that one, if you wanted to make it smaller, theoretically you're going to cut it, fashion the end, and then make it smaller on some kind of machine or on the mandrel with a, this kind of hammer. But here's a couple of rings just to think about. This is an old EPNS fork from a fish and knife set, knife and fork set for fish from the UK. It was annealed, that's why there's a blue tint to it. Basically electroplated. But this particular size right here is, the midpoint is like just coming up on 12. It's quite large, but theoretically you could make it smaller by pushing this piece into the gap there and then squeezing these down to keep the form. Obviously things like pointy ends catch on stuff, so you got to be careful about stuff like that. But you could make it smaller, and we'll have a go at making that one smaller in a minute. This one, again, annealed stainless steel, quite nice actually, that one. Rose or some kind of rose pattern on it, quite nice. But this one is about 8. It's about 8 1/3, kind of like midpoint ring, 8 1/4, somewhere in there. If you wanted to make that smaller, obviously you're going to have more twist in it, and you're going to have to twist parts of it without other parts. So I'll try and show you how to do that. Not always successful, but we'll give that a shot. And then this one, a little easier. The less meat there is on the twist rings, kind of the easier it is, depending on the shape. If I make this one any smaller, I can tuck this underneath here, but the thing is it'll still be bulging against here, so you can kind of like twist it around. But obviously when you make it smaller, it changes the whole form of the ring. This goes further around here, this comes further around here, so the format of the ring will change. You can kind of bend this up and then that in. Depends what you're looking for. But just from the perspective of sizing, this one is, so you just see, this one is about 5 3/4, and let's try and take it down to say 4 3/4. Not always successful. So here, you've seen this before, this is my homemade. You don't see on this rod, there's a huge rod going up here to create the mechanical advantage to bend stuff. This is relatively soft though. So the jaw is going to come into play, what size the jaw is across, and I've cut some different jaws where you can tighten stuff down. May have to change to that one. But this one, I've got like a sleeve over the mandrel, and I've been taking a look at doing copper as well. And it just depends on what sleeves fit on real well of what you're going to push. You could push on a sleeve that's, because you're only pushing at this point, but you're going to deform the sleeves if they're softer. If they're steel, probably not. But anyway, let's try and make this a little smaller, right? So I'm going to put this steel ring on here and physically try and work it round onto the mandrel so it's tightening the ring down like this, but it's actually changing where these two ends really are with regards to each other. So you have to, you see it move in there? Now you get to a point where you can't turn that into there, so you're either picking it up, so you've got to watch the actual, what's actually happening with the metal kind of deal. Right, that's about as tight as it's going to get on that mandrel, and that's, yeah, just a little tiny bit tighter than what it was. So that obviously isn't working. So we'll bring it down onto this size, keep the jaw the same, and try and tighten the ring down. You don't want your fingers in there, obviously. And then just working it around a little piece at a time. Softer metal's going to bend obviously much easier than like stainless and stuff like that. And when you bend, things like this happen. Obviously it's now over the top of here, so I'm going to try and straighten that back out. Can't put the whole ring in there because you're going to kind of take away what you've already bent. So again, it's all trial and error and learning. And you can cause some, right, that's slightly oval now because the mandrel piece that we're running it in, need to get a different mandrel size, but now it's back round. It was oval a second ago. Now we've got here, this is, see the difference now? This is now further round with relationship to the other end, but now this is bent in and this is now bent out. Now you can put that on the mandrel. Let's look at where we got to. We're way down, way small now. It's like at 3. So I'm going to slide this down a little bit. And then I'm going to kind of set it in place. And all I'm doing is tightening this gap up a little bit. Now the ring doesn't look too bad actually. It would depend on the person's finger. Obviously picked the hardest one to do here. That's stupid, right? Okay. And obviously when you put it down the mandrel, it's going to spring back a little, so you always go past the number you're looking for. Maybe a little bit easier on here for you guys to see. So this is 5, that's 4. Now it's about mid-ring, it's about 4.5, and it was at 5.5. It's retained some of its relative shape, but this gap is bigger. So it would depend on the person's finger, what they're looking for. Again, I always keep saying this about the creases in fingers. It's going down your finger this way, or it's going to be worn that way on it kind of anywhere. But this would be more comfortable on a small person's finger going down that way, obviously, because of that. You could also bend that up into the space, pivoting around this point here, and that could look relatively nice. I mean, you can actually do it with the machine. You're actually going to, when you do that though, when you press on certain locations, you may bend, splay stuff out sideways and have to come back and then make it round again. When you do that, you also obviously change the size. So it's a play with it and see how it goes game. So that's down more or less one ring size from 5.5 odd to 4.5. This big monster here, just going to make that a little smaller. I think it's like 11 or something. It's huge. Okay, it's 11. It's 11 and just over 11.5, coming up on 11.75. Now, I'm going to look at where the mandrel is going to be, and you can kind of like work out that if you size it to that mandrel, that circumference would be the size of your finger. And you can kind of work it out like that, so you can get close. So if you put that mandrel on and we make that ring that big, that's a circumference. pretty simple stuff, but let's have a go. So we're seeing that it's like, let's get a pen. You guys can see how how it moves. So we'll put a little mark here, a little mark here. And obviously if you move that in here, you're either going to take a grinder and cut those pieces off and then spend a whole bunch of time cleaning the ends up because it's going to go on somebody's finger. I keep saying that. Got to be, can't feel any sharp edges. So we're pushing this up here. We're going to go a little ways up into this. It's going to push these out. That could look nice. We may have to pull these sharp ends in. Again, old fork. So just working it around a little bit at a time. And you see that right there? It has basically nowhere to go. The mandrel is going to be the circumference. It's pushing the ring in, and you get to a point where you're pushing on it, and you'll actually see it start to move. And it's actually pushing these out at this point. So you can do stuff like this to pull them back in. Keep everything around that circumference again. And there. So what were we at? 11.5. And physically it's moved in about, less than, there's about coming up on an 8. So let's see where we lie now. It's moved in, it's about 11.25 mid-ring. So can we take it any smaller? Yes, but we're going to change the shape of everything. Again, cut this down, and then you can slide it into this gap, make a point out of it, instead of it being round. You got to kind of think of some of these things before you actually start doing them, else you'll end up with trying to cut the back of this off that's sharp because you went and changed it. So kind of think ahead, draw stuff out. This is just a test piece, obviously, but okay, we'll go to a different mandrel size. You see that's way different now. So now we're gonna tweak it in, see it move in, tightening in, tightening in, tightening in. I mean, the machine's doing all the work. It's just where you're pressing kind of deal. Change this jaw, you'll change how much pressure you're putting on it as well. And shape. Okay, so here, now we've come in way over that. We're coming up on 1/4 inch. It's still round, but now the ring is a 9.5. And that depends on your finger, where it's going to go, stuff like that. So that's another one. I don't really want to change this one, but theoretically the same things here. You could work out where it is on the mandrel, and this is like 8 and about 8.5, and you could put on that mandrel. So it's already tight on that mandrel, so you're going to be changing it to a different mandrel, and you could actually, on a spiral ring, you change it kind of like starting at the bottom and then moving up and then turn it over, and then tighten like that. And you'll tighten the spirals, and then you take it round the middle, tighten the middle down, and it'll come back to circular. All right. Somebody said just make a normal little ring. So here's a little tiny stainless steel Supreme. Made, don't know, nice little thing. Anyway, we'll try and make a ring that's, say, let's see, 4.5, somewhere in that realm. And this is stainless steel, so again, it's going to take some work. One lady said anneal it. You can. It'll turn the When you put heat to stainless steel, it'll change the colour, straw colour, blue. But when you've got the mechanical advantage of this, or an arbor or something like that, you can actually bend it. Hopefully, bend it. You get over into this thicker stuff here, that's gonna start getting gonna be hard to bend. Yeah, common mistake, and I just made it myself, is not bending the other end before you start. So I'm gonna, there you go, there's a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, right? I'm gonna widen that out. That doesn't matter about that right now. I'm gonna put this in here, that's the heavier part of it. Keep your fingers away from that. Look, we're forming metal. And turn it up the other way. Right. Right, started to go. It almost looks along the lines of this ring. Again, that one's annealed, this one's straight. I like to see if you can keep the shiny on it. If you anneal it, you're not going to be doing that. Video's getting long. YouTube will tell me off. We're going to tighten that down. One day I'm not going to get my finger out there in time. Let's start to go. Again, it's not unlike this spoon, but what size are we at? That's a 7. It's going to take a while to get down to that, and I'm going to run out of YouTube time here. I'm working the ring from the bottom, bringing it up, a little bit of time, change down to the smaller mandrel, I'm going to get to the point where I can't put that in any further. I'm going to turn it over. And it's just working and working and working, and we're down to 5 and a little bit. I think if any of you make this kind of stuff, getting a different set of mandrels that fit sleeves that go over the mandrel, and then reducing the size will help if you do a lot of rings with a certain size, and you want to step down or up just a little amounts, just get the right sleeves, or have them turned on a lathe. But that's not turning out too bad. And we're at 4 3/4 kind of arena. May have to work on getting that tail in there because it does not want to bend when it gets down this tiny. Just get in the vise. There's that. Okay, that tightened it up a little bit. It's like a piece of so this I would eventually crush up to here, bend this out a little, but you can see how you can form it to however you like. The harder the metal, the harder that is to actually physically do. So that's it, guys. Just a little, I'm still learning as well, so you got any questions, just ask. You want to pick, somebody said show the machine. Up and up and up and up and up and up and up. There's the length of the arm of the machine. It's just scrap from the garage. You can build it. Anybody wants to get on that, just ask the question and I'll show you tell you how it's all made. See you later, guys. Hit the I've been told, the missus told me, say thumbs up and hit the subscribe. See ya. Bye.